Our next storyteller is an author, activist, university lecturer, speaker, and organizer of 10x9 Nashville, Michael McRay. In his free time, he enjoys growing vegetables, playing music, and pretending he has the force every time the doors of the elevator open and close. He's also the reason why I'm known around here as Uncle Rob. Welcome, Michael McRay.
He said only one sentence to me, but I was never the same again. The country was cold, as Poland tends to be in December. Snow covered the ground, and the occasional drizzle of rain sent shivers down our already shivering spines. I had heard of this place for many years, a place where the Nazis murdered over 1 million Jews, a place I'm sure many survivors never wanted to mention again after their liberation came. But here it stood, reconstructed and preserved so that all could walk beneath the Arbeit macht frei sign and remember. In one of the buildings, the words of George Santayana read, "The one who does not remember history is bound to live through it again." When I looked at the myriad bullet holes in the gray killing wall, I knew I, for one, would always remember Auschwitz. That particular weekend was exhausting, physically, but even more emotionally. I had already completed a semester abroad in Vienna, Austria, traveling all around Eastern and Western Europe. After all my classmates returned home, I stayed behind to await my dad's arrival. The day between their departure and his landing was marked with acute loneliness and unease, wondering why I had agreed to this extra leg. iTunes, movies, and candy were my companions. I've never really been good at being alone. After spending a couple of days showing my dad around Vienna and trying to impress him with how much German I could speak with the locals, we boarded an overnight train to Krakow, Poland. In the course of 24 hours, we wandered through the Jewish ghetto, I saw Schindler's List for the first time, and we took the bus to Auschwitz, perhaps the most notorious of all the Nazi death camps. One by one, we walked through the red brick buildings of the compound. In one room, behind a glass partition, rested a nauseatingly large pile of human hair, shaved from the heads of those imprisoned at Auschwitz. In a neighboring room, thousands of old, dilapidating shoes rose from the floor. And in yet another, ownerless luggage, some with names inked or etched in the leather. Face shots of those brought to Auschwitz covered the walls. I felt completely inundated, desperate to escape the debilitating physical reality of the Nazis' Holocaust. My mind could not comprehend over 1 million people dying in the place where I stood, murdered because they were different. And the majority of those murdered were Jews, who many believe are the chosen people of God. That's why, when I heard my dad say that sentence, I knew I would never be the same. I grew up in the South, in America's Bible Belt. We had more churches in my small town of Jellicoe than we had restaurants. Religion pervaded people's perspectives. Whenever tragedy struck, the response seemed scripted. Everything happens for a reason. Or perhaps, God's ways are mysterious. I grew up hearing this constantly. Whether in youth retreats, at Halloween hell houses, in church, sports events, or looking for parking spaces outside of Walmart, the prevailing belief was that God controlled everything. Anything good that happened was God's doing, and anything bad, well, God at least allowed that to happen so that we might learn some greater truth or achieve some deeper faith. I remember when I was a kid hearing youth pastors pray when we all arrived at the retreat center safely, thanking God for God's many gifts and for sending angels to guide the van safely to its destination. Such language was commonplace for me growing up, both to my ears and from my own mouth. I consistently heard that God, and believed that God was looking out for me and would care for me no matter what. God would keep me safe. But there, standing in the crematorium of Auschwitz, a place of ash and screams, the gallows just behind us, something changed in me. With one sentence, my dad broke the silence and he broke down my theology. We stared at the brick ovens and they seemed to stare at us. Then, without looking at me, he simply said, "Whatever you believe about God has to make sense right here, or it can't make sense anywhere. I was never the same again.